computer.
Great. Dear colleagues, добрый вечер. Hello. I'm really to be here. I'm really happy to be here already for the 5th time, as it turned out. And today I'm going to present actually several studies which are devoted to studying the collaboration in science in case of Russian science. And here on the slide, I also put the names of all my collaborators who are working with me on this project. And I'm happy that some of them also joined this seminar, as it is possible to join because it is online. So talking about the, just a second. So talking about the studying of collaboration in general, I think here, especially in this meeting, the experts involved who also study collaboration, and I think you really see all the relevance of this topic. And we know that starting from the 20th century, the middle of 20th century, when the science was transformated in a way and globalized, the scientific knowledge was globalized. It turned out that we cannot say that the activity of scientists, so we can say that the activity of scientists cannot be reduced exclusively to individual creativity as it was before in previous centuries, and there are collectives and groups of people working in some topics. And of course, we should say that we understand that national scientific institutions need to be ready to compete at the global level, and that's how that's why it is important to study the collaboration. And however, speaking about Russian case, it's exactly relevant right now, because now we see that after some events that are going on, we see that now national scientific institutions, especially in Russia, will face to new challenges on the global and local levels, and that's why it's exactly important to study this. And we see that the study of interactions of scientists at the local level of individual states on national level can show how efficient or inefficient they are, and can help us to form some ideas of some changes which should be done to increase the competitiveness of research teams in the international area. And yeah, as I said, now we actually do face some kind of problems, and it will be, so these studies that we are doing now, it will be important to not only implement them right now, but also to continue just to see which changes are happening. And as you probably have seen from the abstract, one of the cases, actually the case that we are studying, is the Russian sociologist community. And it comes, of course, it comes from the fact that I'm a sociologist, and the group is also, there are a lot of sociologists in our group. And we can say that the development of sociology, the scientific discipline, and its professional community in Russia and in Soviet Union can be characterized as non-linear and even dramatic, as some researchers are saying. And they can be, we can distinguish two separate periods. One is a period of pre-revolutionary development of sociology, when the sociology was developing in the context of the idea of foreign social researchers, and the researchers from Russian Empire were in contact with the researchers from, with the scientists from Europe and other countries. And then sociology was kind of prohibited, starting with the Soviet Union. And in 1960s and 1970s, it actually grew up again from the so-called factory research, which is a sociology of labor. And it was said not to have any links with the so-called bourgeois science of international sociological science. And that's why it was a kind of original, because it developed its own theoretical and methodological approaches and some instruments and some regional scientific schools and research communities were developed with their own system of scientific views. But at the same time, of course, there was a weak integration with foreign sociological science. And of course, it led to the insignificant and selective representation of Russian sociologists in the world scientific discourse. And currently, there is, with the high level of centralization in modern Russia and the inequality between capitals and regions, these communities of sociologists became more strength in Moscow and St. Petersburg, but these regional scientific schools, such as, for example, in Novosibirsk, which were developing during the Soviet period, the existence of these schools is kind of questioned. So some researchers in Russia are saying that we can characterize the relationship between the center and regions of sociologists in terms of metropolitan and provincial sciences. So we originally started from the project called Patterns of Collaboration in the Russian Sociological Community, Structure of Scientific Schools and Possible Growth Points. And this is a grant of the Russian Scientific Foundation. And the aim of this project is to analyze the structure and patterns of collaboration in the scientific community of Russian sociologists. We understand collaboration in this project as co-authorship of a scientific article and also as a joint presentation at the conference. And we use the methodology of bibliometric network analysis, and also we are going to use expert interviews to explain the data that we will get. And the data goes from the bibliographic database on publications of Russian sociologists from, as for the data, we use bibliographic data on publications of Russian sociologists and also the data on participation in conferences. And we actually have chosen 2 conferences, and I will talk about it a little bit later. And the source for this data goes from the e-library, electronic library, which is Russian library with all production of Russian scientists. It's a kind of COBIS, but probably less structured. And we are going to analyze the data in a time period from 2010 to 2019. And actually, we collected the data up to 2022. And so I think that we will not stay for 19, and we will use just all the data that we have. So this is the first project with which we started. And then we were involved into another project, which is called now Russian Publications in Web of Science, a bibliometric study. And this is a joint work with the Associate Professor of Computer Science from the University of West Bohemia, Dalibor Fiala. And it was really unexpectedly, it came really unexpectedly to me in May 2022. Dalibor wrote me that he actually already collected the data from Web of Science for all Russian publications, and he asked whether we will be able to communicate on it and to collaborate on this project and to do the joint analysis. And of course I said yes, because especially at that time it was extremely important and to get some proposals of collaboration from abroad. And at this project, we are analyzing the structure and patterns of collaboration in the different disciplines in Russian science, because this is the data for all the disciplines in Russia. and this goes from 1991 again up to 2022. And yeah, the main methodology is bibliometric network analysis. As this large project also appeared, so the idea of the analysis was that we have, from one side, we have this e-library source, and we have the data on sociology. We actually collected almost, a little bit more than, say, 75,000 publications. And from another side, we have all the disciplines in Web of Science. And that's why we also thought that it would be very useful to extract the data for sociology from Web of Science, and to make a comparison of the national and international databases, because it can help us to find different patterns of collaboration of Russian sociologists, because also there are studies studies in Russian, which showed that there are different orientations of Russian sociologists, and they can be oriented either to domestic sociology and just publish in Russian journals. They can be oriented towards the international community and publish in international journals. And also there is some group in between. So it would be really interesting to see what will be the difference between the results of the analysis of these two databases. And extracting this category of sociology will help us to test the methodology and analysis for studying all disciplines in Web of Science that we are going to make with Dalibor Fiala. So we have this amount of publications, and for Web of Science it is more than 1,300,000. And it turned out that for the category of sociology in Web of Science, it's almost 9,000 publications. And at first, I will tell you more about the first project on the patterns of collaboration in the Russian sociological community based on this e-library data. Actually, not only e-library data, but also the data on the conferences. And as I said, we used in our application, we wrote that we are going to analyze the largest conferences, and we were thinking about European Sociological Association conference, International Sociological Association, and also American Sociological Association. And when we started checking which data we have, it turned out that in the American Sociological Association website for the conferences, there is no actually data for the country of the researcher. So that's why we could not distinguish the Russian researchers from the conferences of American Sociological Association. That's why we decided to stay for European and International Sociological Association. So we collected the data for 12 conferences, and for each conference we have the data on the presentation title and type of report, and so it is plenary or a session. Then authors, their affiliations and cities where they come from, also keywords and abstracts, and also section organizers of the section, and sometimes even the contacts of organizers. And we collected it for all the authors with Russian affiliation. And the number of the reports, joint papers that we got was 933. And of course, this is a kind of additional information, and our main source of for analysis is Scientific Electronic Library, e-library. And we actually asked the company e-library to provide us the data. And we were searching the articles, so the scientific articles, so this is the type of the publication, in the journals which are indexed in Russian Science Citation Index. So this is a kind of database which index like best journals in Russia. So these are the articles published in these journals, and in the area of sociology. And we asked for the period from 2010, and we got actually the data up to 2022, as I said. And the number of publication is 75,000, a little bit more than 75,000. And we actually got quite a rich database. And for each publication, we have the data on the publication ID at e-library resource, a library database. Then its title, pages, number of pages, DOI, the support, so the grant, if there is the grant, so then the information is provided, the year when it was published, link, URL address to the work itself, if it is provided, because some of the papers are closed, but some have open access. And then also reference, so the full reference, and also citations. Citations are counted according to the e-library itself. So it's a kind of black box in a way, but still we have some information about citations. Also, we collected the information for the authors of these publications, and we decided to collect the data for up to 8 authors, their IDs, their affiliations, and IDs of affiliations. So it's nice that in this database, the authors who are registered in this Russian Science Citation Index, they have IDs, and it should be very useful for the further analysis, and the same for affiliations. Then for the journal name, so for the journals, we have name, also ID, and also some other information, including impact factor and whether they indexed in WOS, Scopus, and the information on the volume, number, publisher, and ID of the publisher. And also we have keywords, abstracts in Russian and English, and also the rubric code, which is for all the publications that we get is the same, because we were asking for the rubric subject area sociology. And here I would like to show you some data, just the description of the databases that we got. So this is about the conferences, as I said. For those 12 conferences, we got more than 600 unique authors and 150 affiliations of them, and they are coming from 60 cities. And here you can see the distribution of number of authors and number of reports that they were doing at different conferences. Actually, it just looks like some conferences were more popular than others. And we also see that some authors presented at 15, 14, 13 times. So it means that they were presenting more than once at one conference. And also the majority of authors are coming from Moscow, St. Petersburg. Then we have Novosibirsk, and then just several other Russian cities. Not that many. Then we have the data on the e-library publications. And as I said, it's really nice that we have IDs for authors, and for those authors for whom we have IDs, we actually have in general 15,000 authors, but we have no information about ID for 14,000 of authors. So it means that only about 1,000 of authors have IDs in our data set. Then we have about 4,000 of unique journals and 1,600 unique publishers, and not so many articles with funding. I just remind you that we have 75,000 of papers that we found, and out of them we have this amount of funding information. For keywords in Russian, it is better. So we have 61, almost 62,000 of articles with keywords. Then you have less keywords in English, and for abstracts, it's about the same. So for 47,000 of articles out of this 75,000, we have information about abstracts. Then the number of authors and number of articles that they have is shown on the right side. And we can see that the majority of authors, the majority of publications are written by one author, 66%. And then we have 25% of articles written by two authors, and then three authors are for only for 7% of articles. So actually, it's a kind of usual thing, I would say. However, we are searching for the patterns of collaboration, so it means that we would need to take the information starting from the second and so on, second author and so on. So it's not that much. Then I have some information on the year of publication and of course, going closer to 2020, of course, the number of publication reduces, but this should be an effect of the indexing in the database. And for abstracts in English and Russian, we see that it is more frequently that the works which are published earlier do not have this information. So probably e-library at that time was not possible to index all the information, or I don't know. So we will have to work on this. And here I also showed the most used keywords, and it's a kind of give us the idea of what are the main kind of important topics on which the sociologists are working. And so this is youth, and then society, family, values, culture, education, globalization, students, migration, socialization, identity, civil society, modernization, communication, state, management, and Russia. And of course, there are many more, and we made a kind of, very briefly, we made the analysis of co-occurrence of keywords for Russian, and this is on the left and English on the right. However, I'm sure you don't really see this well, but I can also share this presentation. But what is interesting is that in the middle of this left picture, there is there are the keywords related to the religion and Orthodox church, and so everything connected to this sociology of religion. And I was really happy to find network analysis on the right. However, this is this blue, this dark blue somewhere in the middle. However, it is mostly developed. It is mostly developed devoted to the Vkontakte. So this is a kind of Russian Facebook. So these are for social network sites in social network media, not the network analysis that we are working in.
Dasha, so they are using different keywords.
Yeah, actually, I should. Yeah, thank you for the question, Vlado, because of course we should say that this is a very brief analysis from what we have now in the database. But it happened that in many cases for Russian, when we have Russian keywords, the English version is not provided, and when we have English keywords, the Russian keywords are not provided. So we are actually going to, I will tell about it a little bit later, we are going to like complete, to make this database more complete. And probably we should translate the keywords so that we will have the whole, the information for all the publications, the same information. So yeah, here I should also say that when we got this information, when we got this database from e-library, I was really happy, and I was just looking at the database and was searching for some names whom I know, and then it turned out that actually some publications are not included in our database because they are ascribed to different categories. For example, I have my publications which are purely sociological, and those publications, for example, that we published with Vlado, they are ascribed to the category of scientometrics, not the sociology of science, otherwise it would be included to the category of sociology, but scientometrics, and that's why they were not included into our database. And I was kind of frustrated because according to the data that we have, there is no, for example, this international collaboration, I mean, in my case, and there is no data on the connection on publishing in international journals, because eLibrary actually they index they also include their publications published in international journals to their database if the author is registered in this Russian Science Citation Index. And so we thought that we should try to expand the data set. And the idea was that we take the authors with IDs from our original data set. So those who are definitely sociologists, because they have publications in sociology. And then we search for the articles for these authors with IDs, and so we find the IDs of these articles, and then we extract those articles which didn't appear in our first original data set, and just collect these extra articles. And it took us a while to make this work, because it was, as you see, it was 120,000 of articles. And when we downloaded it, and again, when we started some brief analysis of this data, we actually were frustrated again, because then in the category we found some works I mean, among all the categories, which now you see the top categories on the right, we also saw the sociological category. And it was supposed that all the publications in sociology should already be in our original data set. So that's why we contacted our colleagues from the library and asked why and how this can happen. And it turned out that in this extended data set, we collected the publications for all the journals, all the journals which are included into eLibrary. However, not all of them are indexed in this Russian Science Citation Index. So that's why now the next step would be to filter this data set that we now got according to the list of the journals which are included into this Russian Science Citation Index. And again, I asked our colleagues how to get this list, and they said it's not really static and it is changing. So for now, we thought that the current decision will be to continue working with the original data set that we have. So this is kind of the strictest rule, so that all the publications are devoted to the category of sociology. However, we think that we will be able to also later add these extra publications, and actually it will be also interesting to compare the results and to see how much they will change. And now with this data from eLibrary, we are working on two main directions. So one is for authors disambiguation. So now, as you have seen, we have a lot of authors for whom the IDs are not ascribed. So that's why we need to ascribe these IDs to all the authors in our dataset. And before this, we need to unify the name spelling of the authors, both in Russian and in English, and unify spelling of affiliation of authors, because of course they can be written in different ways. However, hopefully here we have IDs of affiliation, and it helps us. And then based on the names that we have, unified names and also unified affiliations, we can ascribe IDs to those authors who do not have IDs in our data set, but they kind of have this ID, but it just happened that they, in some publications, they do not have them. Or for those authors who will not appear in this list of authors with IDs, we just need to create new ones. And so this is now what we are doing in terms of this unification of the authors. And as you also have seen that we noticed that the data set is not complete, especially in the way of keywords and abstracts, and that's why we decided that actually we will not use the same API system as I didn't tell that eLibrary didn't just provide us the data, but they gave us API and the list of the IDs by which we were searching for the publications. And we thought that actually we found out during the process of data collection that sometimes something is written in a different way in the code of the pages. So for example, sometimes in our parser, for example, we were searching for the brackets, and then in the brackets should be some information. But then it turns out that in some articles there are double brackets. So that's why our code that we wrote for parsing didn't find some information. And so that's why we thought that as we now have the all the links to all the publications, we just simply filter those publications which do not have keywords and abstracts, and we will just write the code which goes to these links and extract the information from keywords where it is written keywords and abstracts. So it will be, we hope, a little bit easier, because also for the collection of eLibrary data, we needed to have a static IP address, and we could work only from High School of Economics or from my home. And sometimes colleagues really had to stay till late night to accomplish some tasks. And now I would like to present some results. And so this is for the analysis of the data on the conference participation. And here also the number of presentations done by 1, 2, 3, and 4 authors is shown. And again, we see that only 27% of reports were done in collaboration. And we managed to construct the networks of collaboration, and we used Thailand's approach to extract the most interesting subgroups. However, most of them were just pairs of authors, but we observed interesting structures of collaboration. And here I was really happy. Now it was true happiness to find a group of researchers working in the field of network analysis. And this is a group from St. Petersburg who are organizers, who were the organizers of NetGlow conference, Nikita Basov and his colleagues. These structures that we extracted kind of make sense from substantial point of view. Then we also looked at the so we constructed the network of affiliations, like how the people from different organizations are working together, and then out of this network we constructed the network of affiliations co-occurrence. And here we see the main actors. Probably you do not really see, but I will tell that these are the Russian Academy of Science. This is the most strong lines with others. And then we see here on the right, High School of Economics, so our university, and also St. Petersburg State University. So kind of three main organizations from where actual sociologists are going to conferences. And we see that they are interconnected, which is also a good sign. This was for the analysis, for the data and for some results of the project devoted to the sociologists in the e-library. And now I will present also the data and some results of the second project of the analysis of Web of Science data. So here we have bibliographic data, and these are full descriptions with cited references, which makes it easier to make this kind of typical analysis, typical bibliometric analysis using WOS2PIAC and this overflow workflow that we are usually using in our data in our analysis. So we have more than 1 million publications. We finished the first paper. It was more the responsibility of the Libor, so that's why it is already done, and it is published to the journal Publications, and now it is under review. My responsibility is network analysis, and so this is something in the process right now. So I'm just going to show you some tables with the data, with the counts of the data that we have in this database of Web of Science. And so these are top 20 documents types and the accounts. So the most popular document types are articles and preceding papers. Also there is the information on their citations and also citations per paper, which shows a kind of importance of each type of the document. And we see that it is really true. It is higher for articles and a category which is article and preceding paper, so somehow a double category. But this is very high for reviews, unexpectedly, and also book chapters. Then we have here the number.
Excuse me. Lado, can I ask here something to the moderator, because after that it's difficult to go back.
No, in our seminar it's usual that if you have some question, you just ask, no problem.
For me, it's here interesting what Daria presented, this PowerPoint, this slide. The number of citation for bibliographic unit for the last, at the last column is CPP, that is per paper, for instance, for article, etc. What is in the Web of Science publications? For me, it's interesting that it's the highest this average citation for papers for here.
For reviews.
38.
Book chapters.
Book chapter. Does it mean that there are more cited in this Web of Science Russian humanities or social sciences, because the book chapters are less convenient publication types in so-called hard sciences, or I am in mistake. I am not sure. What is here? What is? Can you explain why is this number so high? Book chapter.
Yeah, actually, I cannot explain. This is really something that needs to be examined.
Okay.
Yeah. But now I will also show the areas where the articles are published, and you will see that these humanities and social sciences are actually the kind of minority of they have the minority of papers. So it seems like they are not going from this disciplines. But I will just write down all the questions, and I think it can be also the source for further inquiry, just to like uncover something. So if you also notice something else interesting,
but
just
other
let us
side
know.
is, excuse me, very shortly, that I will not interrupt too much. Probably book chapters are something what is very standardized in the whole scientific discipline, because book chapters, that is also something from the conferences. If maybe should be difference if by books should be a high number of citations, but by book chapter, I would say it's not something very.
Yeah, if I look to this title, there is review and book chapter. So I would expect that maybe these book chapters contain a review of some field, and this topic can be quite interesting for referencing, for citation, because it contains an overview of, for instance, of some field or something like this. This could be an explanation why this number of citations is so large.
Okay, thank you. Our review is important.
Okay, I just wrote it down. Okay, and here we have the number, the temporal data. So the number of Russian articles here on the left, we have the number of Russian articles and proceedings papers published over time, and it seems like in the recent time, the amount of the share of proceeding papers increased, and this also can be due to the fact that the scientists started taking part in conferences more intensively, and also that this type of papers started to be published. And also we have on the right the development of Russian production index in Web of Science and the share of Russian publication in global publications over time. And actually this share is really not that amazing. So it's about 3%. So the share of the publications written in Russia in the global publications is just changing from like 1% to 3%, something like this. Then we have top 20 document languages, so that the majority of the papers are written in English, so 84%. However, there are 15% are written in Russian, and also there are other languages like German, French, Spanish, and also Ukrainian, Bulgarian, and so on. So this shows that actually there are some journals in Russia which are indexed in Web of Science. So that's why they are appearing here. But of course, the majority are published in English.
Yeah, but here I think is if I'm looking at least to the journals that I am following, I think the problem is that Web of Science is not indexing Chinese journals, or at least it's indexing only few of them, some of them. So because if I look, for instance, in some journals, half of the authors are Chinese in last years. So it's I think this number about Chinese, probably is true about with respect to what is indexed in the Web of Science, but it's not a real picture.
No, but these are the Russian authors publishing in these languages.
Aha.
So there are some papers written by Russians.
It's not about the.
It's not the overall representation. Yeah. Probably I didn't tell specifically about it, but yeah, some authors are from Russia are writing papers in Chinese. So there are 148 publications like this.
They are co-authors of some Chinese.
Yeah, co-authors. Yeah. So. And then we have we counted the number of papers and their citations and citations per paper for collaboration type. So there are two different. So there are two types. So some published some papers are only written with only Russian authors. And some are international collaborative papers. And again, we see that there are 73% of only Russian authors' papers. And actually, we see that those which are published in collaboration with international scientists are cited more than those which are cited only with the domestic authors.
I have again one question here. And do you have also comparability for citation of one author works with collaborated works?
Excuse me, I might not understand.
You present here at these slides the number of citations for papers of works are collaborative, co-authorized. You have difference between Russia only papers and only international collaborative papers, and the number, of course, is higher for these international co-authorized papers, where are also the scientists from the outside Russia. That is normal. But do you have also comparability between co-authorized and one author? What is this? Single author.
Yeah, I got it. I don't have it now on the slide, but yeah, this is also a nice thing to show. Yeah, I am also.
Yeah, that is
writing it down.
It's very interesting that you see that you can then prove if the collaboration is beneficial concerning citation, the number of citations.
Yes, this is very good thought. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. We will definitely do it. Okay, and now we have also top 40 collaborating countries and also the number of papers and percent of papers and citations. And so Russian scientists have the most amount of collaboration with United States and Germany, and then France, United Kingdom, and Italy. Then China, Japan, Spain, and so on, which is all actually, I'm just looking. Yeah, we do not have Slovenia here, but we also have some post-Soviet Union countries which are in this 40, like Kazakhstan, for example. Then we have the areas where the most representative research areas with the largest amount of papers, and these are physics, chemistry, then engineering, material sciences, mathematics, optics, science and technology, and then you see actually that almost all of these disciplines are natural disciplines, so we do not really have sociology or social sciences in this top 40. And also here the citations per paper are shown, and we can see what fields are making kind of their main, which are the most attractive research areas. And so this is here for astronomy and astrophysics, and then for general and internal medicine and cell biology. So these are the largest, so they are most cited. And then we have education and educational research and history. Yeah, and then, yeah, and actually, so then business and economics, so something like this, which is not cited much, which is much less cited. And also we counted relative world impact. So in comparison to the general, in comparison to the share of this citations in general in the world. And also we see that the general and internal medicine is having more impact while these disciplines like automation and control systems and meteorology and atmospheric sciences and so on are actually making lower impact than in general. Actually, this is a table that needs to be analyzed precisely, and so you can get the feeling of what are the most kind of important and important on the international level areas. And then we are going to the category of sociology. And here I should say that in Web of Science, there are two ways how to define categories, and there are two fields. And we have, so they are called WC and SC. And we decided to stay with the areas because for the Web of Science categories, it looks like they allow to have different categories for the same article. And so we were splitting the data according to the areas that we have. And for area sociology, we have only about 8,000 of publications, so which is about 1% from all the publications. Also, we have the areas of social sciences, other topics, social issues, mathematical methods and social sciences, biomedical social sciences and social work. So there is actually a question whether we should include it further to our sub database or not, or just to stay strict precisely with the area of sociology. And now our further steps are to actually split the database according to these categories and analyze each discipline. As the first step, we are extracting the category of sociology and prepare the whole workflow for the analysis so that we will be able to use it further for other disciplines. Also, we need to understand how to make authors disambiguation and just to see which kind of questions we have. And to do it, we actually have two options. One option was that if there will be some addition to Vostupayek, so if it will give back also the information of works and categories, then it would be fine, and we will just use Vostupayek and have the files of two-mode networks with works and categories to which they are described. But also we have data for each publication and so each publication ID and the category to which it is ascribed. So that's why actually now we can extract this sub database according to this information. However, of course, it would be fine, and we discussed it also with Vlado on our previous methodological seminar in the lab, that it would be nice to have this option also in Vostupayek, so it will give us additional opportunities to make the analysis. And so here, I think I'm coming to my last slide. So I showed you the results that we currently have for this 2 or rather 3 projects. And so now the further steps for these projects would be actually for e-library, it would be to finish the author's disambiguation procedure to clean all the data, and then we are ready to start the network construction and analysis. And I think it should be the easiest. I mean, it should be much easier than cleaning this data, because actually, of course, there are a lot of errors, and with Cyrillic, there are some problems with the transliteration and so on, with which we are currently dealing. And then as we have the time period of more than 10 years, so probably we can make some temporal analysis. And then we would like to make some block modeling analysis, so that we will be able to extract some core and periphery, and then we will be able to answer to these questions whether there is this science which is done in capitals, and this peripheral science in sociological sciences in Russian. And then also it would be still nice to make the expanded data set, and as I said, to check whether there will be any changes if we are any new results if we are making the analysis. And then we need to also conduct expert interviews. So probably a little bit later we will present the results, and we will ask you also to kind of help us with the interpretation. And so this is for this first e-library project. For WOS Web of Science Analysis project, so as I said, the first step would be to distinguish the sub data set for sociological publications. And there we already have the workflow of how to construct the network and basically how to make the analysis. And of course, it would be also nice to make a temporal analysis, and because we have even 20 years or 30 years old of observation, I'm sorry, and block modeling. And then we will go to this all disciplines analysis, and we do hope that we will be able actually to do something as it was done by our colleagues who are here on this seminar, to look at the block modeling structures, to look at the global structures of the collaboration patterns in different disciplines and during some periods of time. So it should be very, it should be, with this analysis, we should be able to extract, to understand how actually different disciplines are developing, and what is the difference between different disciplines and how they are developing over time. Yeah, so this is, I think, pretty much it. And I'm happy to hear your questions, and probably there will be some more.
Yeah, maybe I can comment on that was to Payak. When I was deciding what to include and in was to Payak, I think I also considered this area option, but as I remember, it's relatively recent field that was introduced was relatively in recent time. So in the let us say if you are collecting the data, also old bibliographic data, there is no field about the area. And because of this, it was not introduced. Otherwise, it's a relatively simple thing to add it. So there is no problem with this. And another comment is, if you go back to that distribution of number of authors per paper, it's somewhere at the beginning.
So you mean in this?
Yeah,
Oh,
just at the beginning.
yes,
Yeah, here, yeah, this one.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You said that there is 60% of papers are single author papers. This is quite high number of because as I remember when we analyzed the frequencies, these distributions for SNA, yeah. I think the tendency is that I think that the number of
single authors is decreasing in time, but you know, Lado, this is typical sociological area, and here are still quite a lot of single authored papers.
Yeah,
you know,
that's also social network analysis is also
yeah,
somehow sociological. So, and there, I think there is two authors paper number is both of them around 30% or something, and the rest is again around 30%. So it seems that in Russian sociological community is still quite prevalent the tendency to write papers by each author by himself or herself. So,
yeah, also sometimes it's a kind of obligation to have the paper by one author. So if you are, for example,
you have some conditions in, for instance, for
PhD, for candidate of science or doctor of science defense, for example, you need to have some amount of papers written only by yourself. Or probably it's a kind of culture.
That can also influence, yeah.
But it would be nice to make the same kind of picture that we did for SNA analysis, just to show how it was changing.
How it's changing
whether it is
yeah.
changing
Maybe it's improving now.
Yeah.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
Okay, first I congratulate you, because it is very demanding work, I would say, to collect data in so big country. In Slovenia, a small country, and we have still quite good organized this COBIS. You know it, but what my question is, because I'm a little irritating all the time when I heard you mentioned that this Russian citation index. I'm a little skeptical that at the national level is organized something like citation index for one nation, even for so big. Can you describe a little more? How does it function? Is it the same analogy like Web of Science, or it's more only collection of data, or even collected some citations among Russian scientists? Because Web of Science is still something what is connected with global science. But if we heard about, for instance, Russian citation index in the former time, about 20 years ago, I have heard for the idea from Serbia that they should create national this index. Can you a little more describe?
So first,
essentially similar to COBIS in some sense, or Web of Science.
Yeah, okay, but
Dasha, maybe you can run e-library.
Yeah. Just a second. Actually, we should differentiate between e-library and Russian Science Citation Index, because these are a little bit different entities. Because e-library is, I just opened it. Just let me demonstrate my screen. So this is a kind of Web of Science. So electronic library for all the publications which we have kind of in Russia. And inside this electronic library, there is this Russian Science Citation Index, this Российский индекс научного цитирования. So these are for the journals which are indexed, which are registered in this Russian Science Citation Index, and also for the authors who are also registered. And so the library in general, it has more publications than are included into this Russian Science Citation Index. Actually, if you go to Web of Science, unfortunately, I cannot go to open Web of Science now because I don't have access to it anymore. If you will search in different databases there, so it has Web of Science core collection, but also have other emerging scientific indices or something like this. So then they will be also Russian Science Citation Index. So it is included into Web of Science.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can show the information that, for instance, search yourself for somebody and.
Yes, yes, mm-hmm. Yes. It's. Wait. Just a second. My. Mm-hmm. So this would be. I'm registered. I mean, I'm sorry, my mouse, my touchpad somehow not working well. So I'm registered here, so that's why, of course, it's possible to watch all my publications. So now it is written that you have 38 publications, and also it has the number of citations, also as Web of Science makes it. So,
and now,
for example,
if you click to some publication.
Yeah, so for example, you see now they are the works published in Russian, but also their works published in English. So for example, the recent paper with Vlada on journals published in social network analysis. So as I am registered in this database, they are kind of tracing my publications, and they are getting the data from, they were getting data from Web of Science and I mean from other databases, from other journals, and they were including this data also to this to the electronic library. However, it is Scientometrics, which is international, which is not in Russian Science Citation Index, but they found it because of me, because I'm registered there and I have this ID. And there you have actually all the information about the authors and then the affiliations. And we were able, with my colleagues, we were able to collect all this data. So we had the access to these pages through API, and we collected all this information which is shown here. So journal, and then bibliometric, some I'm sorry, some bibliometric metrics, then some IT metrics, and then information about this or the support, some grant. And yeah, sometimes if probably it will be the Russian publication, then you will also have the references, the literature that was cited, and they, as you see, even show how the publication is cited, so the context where it is, it appears. So it would be pretty nice if it would be a little bit better organized, because as I said, even working through API, it was sometimes impossible to collect some parts of the page, because it seems like sometimes they are writing the information in a different way. But also you can, here you can also look, for example, for your so for example, all publications which are which are citing your work, then you can make the analysis of publication activity of the author. So now, for example, you can see actually now there are 3 affiliations that I had during from 2010. This is university, then the company where I was working, and then National Research University High School of Economics. And this is the amount of publications that I got. And then it has the number of citations, index of Hirsch index, H index, then some other publications which cited publications of this author, and some other metrics, actually quite a lot. So having this ID of the author, it is also possible just to go to this analysis of publication activity and also to make some kind of analysis. And there are different reports which can be done for the author. And yeah, it is written that my main rubric is this sociology. So that's why I can be regarded as a sociologist in our analysis.
It does mean that this instrument, this right side, as you now present, it's possible to make some descriptive statistics.
Yeah. So for example, we can make like distribution of publication according to the topic. And now we have sociology, then this scientometrics, psychology, kybernetics, pedagogy. I don't know what I was doing in this fields, but still it is interesting. Or like by keywords. So you see that this is social network analysis, and yeah, something like this. So yeah, and there are different things that can be done according to the number of co-authors. So you see, even I have 10 publications written just by myself. So this is a kind of cultural thing in Russia, probably. Yeah. And we have quite a nice connection with e-library. So also the idea of this project that we are doing, that we will kind of show them some possibilities that could be done with their data. And then we decided, we discussed with them that they will be able to provide us some extra data. And of course, the kind of dream idea can be that we will also get an access to all the data from e-library, and we will do something that your group was doing with the COBIS data.
Dasha, probably you had some problems because you have some paper, some information here in Cyrillic and some information in Latin. So how did you deal with that?
You mean here on my page?
Well, about papers, because some are in English, some are.
Yeah. So this was like now for all the data we have. Actually, what is good is that we have IDs for authors and affiliations and publications, and also publishers. So it's easy to connect if, for example, in this publication, my name is written in Russian, but in publication with Vlado, it is written in English. And as I have the same ID, so then they just merge me. So
yeah, you have this author ID 696348.
Yeah. So this is my ID, my ID, and that's why they find all the publications either in English or it can be also in different language. But in our data set, we have ID for author, and then we have his or her name written either in English or in Russian. So that's why we will also be able to connect these two entities through ID.
Is it possible that that you would have different versions of your name in English? Translate. translations in.
There are even there are bigger problems because there are different rules of transcriptions of Russian names in different languages. So, for instance, if in German you write in one way, in French you write in the other way, in English you write in third name way, and so on. So it's the Russian names appear in different publications in many different forms, and it can be a problem, yeah. But there is a rule how to transform the Cyrillic name into English name. This is let us say a kind of standard procedure, and most of the cases are probably covered by this. But then there are other problems because, for instance, I think Maltseva is relatively frequent name, family name in Russian, and there are many other people with women with this family name. And if you just if you don't consider additional information, it's sometimes difficult to identify the right person. But since she has the ID in e-library, she's probably not a problem, because this is usually resolved when the data are entered into the system.
Yeah,
and,
like copies, for example.
Yeah, most of the systems, many systems are, how to say, they take care about this, let us say, kind of registered or identified users in the phase of entering the data. But as she showed us before, there are only a bit less than 1,000 of such persons, and 40,000 people that have no ID, and they are essentially a problem. But in some sense, how to say, if you assume that that people are not so important, it can still be that limiting analysis to the researchers with a given ID, you would get at the top level very similar results. Probably there is no important Russian researchers that is not, how to say, without this author ID. I guess so. I'm not sure about this,
but yeah, but it can also happen that some works are not by mistake or somehow are not ascribed to the authors who already have ID. So that's why we are going so at first step, we are unifying the names, both in English and both in Russian and in English. And then we are kind of searching for those names and affiliations in this, from this sub-database for authors who have IDs. So we are using this data to find, we are trying to find this data in another part of the database for authors who do not have IDs. And then if we find someone, we will give him or her the ID which already exists. But then we will filter so that we will get some extra authors, and then we will finally have the authors who do not have IDs. And then we will need to also filter them and to merge them, because probably there should be the same people. And then we will give them extra IDs so that we will know that, it will be used for the further analysis. And by these IDs, we will know that they are kind of extra given, so that they were not registered. I can actually show you how this data looks like. It's it can be opened in Excel format. So, for example, we have author one, we have 8 authors maximum, and for each author, we have ID and then affiliation ID. And then this is how last name is written in Russian. And then initials are written in Russian. And then affiliation is written in Russian. And then the same three things written in English. And the idea of my colleagues, and I mean, our idea is that now we will unify the names in Russian, because of course, sometimes there are some problems. For example, the whole name is written in the cell for the last name. So for example, here, but this is some Chinese name, I believe. So we will
probably Vietnamese.
Vietnamese, yes, Nguyen He Dung. Yeah, but also sometimes initials are included here, or they are somehow like the places for them are changed. So the initials can appear in the surname and vice versa. And then when we will clean this, we are also thinking to translate it, I mean, to transliterate it into English, and also to compare how this, I mean, to compare it with the surname and name, how it is translated by eLibrary. And so we will also have different versions. And we hope that it will help us to find among these groups of authors who are not defined. So it contains a lot of steps of cleaning.
It's complicated, and there are other problems. What is the, for instance, in Russia, when you marry, when you are married, do women change their name or not?
Some women change, some not. As you see,
yeah, I know for you,
I
but
still have my own. Yeah, but yeah, there is a tradition that some women can change, and sometimes it is written in brackets, the second surname. Sometimes it's written, but if you have your ID from eLibrary, then it's not a problem.
Then there is no problem. But
the problem appears when you
under
don't.
different names. Yeah.
Yeah, but there we hope that affiliation can probably help us to.
Yeah, but you change three different institutions yourself. So if I look to your case, you have university, then you have this company, and then and now the again university and another university. So it's not so easy. Huh? So it's a very good thing to have this ID. So at least for that entries, you know.
Well, what to do? We will also look how many authors, undefined authors we will have, and probably we will really have to just remove them. So we don't know.
No, I think your idea that you add additional IDs and try to identify equivalent names. So, and then you join this, you replace, essentially, you preserve one of the two IDs, and in this way, but in this way you get an approximation of the real situation. But as I said before, usually I suppose that people with important people probably have their author ID. So the people that are not people without ID are probably people that are maybe less important. Yeah. So and probably they don't influence the overall results or this main part of the community very much, and in this way, essentially, you can treat this inexact identification as a kind of noise. Because statistically, if you appear many times, you will appear in the main results. And now what you have to do is usually you have to, when you get the final results, you have to check the results. And if in your data you still have double personality, so the same person that appears twice or even more times, they will usually appear in the same context, because they are usually collaborating with the same people, dealing with the same topics and so on. So if you are now going through the results, checking the results, you can visually identify such cases, and in such cases then you have to go back to the data, correct the data, and rerun the analysis, and you get, I guess, relatively solid results.
I can also show here our. So these are just some results of the this brief analysis that we did. I didn't include it to the presentation, but this is the number of publications for authors with IDs. And actually, if you look at this, I mean, as I know some sociologists, so if you look at this list, so actually they're quite known. So already, actually, this is my dean, this Toshchenko Zhan Terentьevich. So if you look at it, you already see that as in this approach, that like statistical approach, that all the important entities will be shown anyway. So probably it's not that much important that this my dean wrote 108 papers or 112 papers. But anyway, he is already in the list. He is number 5. So he's in the top, so among the top authors anyway. And yeah, now I see that this is very representative list. So these are really well-known sociologists. But these are only those who have author IDs.
No, otherwise, I think it's worthwhile to invest some work into as good as possible identification of units that are essentially, in your case, you have essential problem with authors. With other types of units, it seems that IDs that are inside the database already resolve this identification problem, which is not the case, for instance, in Web of Science.
Yeah, this is really quite a rich database in this sense.
No,
yes.
Probably also in Web of Science they have this data, but it's not available when you are collecting the data from Web of Science. Any other comment, question, remark? So, if there is no comment, we have to finish today's seminar. Thank you, Dasha, for your presentation, and see you next Wednesday. Bye.
Thank you very much for your comments and questions. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
I will be glad to share the further results a little bit later.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.